Hello and welcome to Module 8 of Igbo language. In this module, we will be looking at advanced grammar and its structure. That is from correct sentence to sophisticated expressions. Ndị Igbo na-asị, onye ma okwu ọfụma, ọ na-akpa ụzọ, which means he who knows word well clears the path. The module content that we will be looking at in this module include complex sentence formation, use of conjunction and connectivities, reported speech in Igbo language. We'll further look at advanced negations and emphasis. We'll also look at idiomatic and figurative expression before we draw our conclusion. Let us begin with the introduction. You have mastered the foundation of Igbo, that is the alphabet, verb, vocabulary, reading, writing, and culture. And now it is time to elevate your skill from competent speaker to a true orator. This module teaches you to form complex sentences using relative clause like nke, conditional like obruna, time clause like mbe, and purpose clause like ka, which allowing you to express how, why, and under what condition things happen. You will master conjunction, mana n'ihi na pụta, mana n'ihi ya pụta, as verbal clue. Then learn reported speech to share what others said and use advanced negotiation like Z, Bei, and Cha, and emphasis reduplication, Buka for precision and power. You will explore idiomatic expression like Obi mbawa, heartbreak, and Iwanya, cleverness, unlocking the poetic and cultural depth of fluent Igbo speech. By the end of this lesson, you will not just participate in conversation, you will lead them, living the proverb, onye ma okwu ama ana-akpọ ụzọ, which means he who knows word well clears the path. Let us look at complex sentence structure, the overview. What is a complex sentence? A sentence with one main clause and one plus one or more subordinate clauses. That is what we call a complex sentence. So any sentence that has a main clause plus more than one subordinate clause is called compound sentence or complex sentence. Now the main clause there is isiahurokwu in Igbo language. It can stand its own. Example, m na-aga ụlọ akwụkwọ, I will go to school. Then the subordinate clause there, ahịrịokwu nkwado, which does not stand on its own. Ma ọ bụrụ na mmiri anaghị ezo, which means if it does not rain. So the subordinate clause is there is that ma ọ bụrụ na mmiri anaghị ezo. So m na-aga ụlọ akwụkwọ ma ọ bụrụ na mmiri anaghị ezo. So m na-aga ụlọ akwụkwọ is the main clause which stands on its own. Then the subordinate clause is ma ọ bụrụ na mmiri ezo. Now complete the complex sentence. M na-aga ụlọ akwụkwọ ma ọ bụrụ na mmiri ezo. So I will go to school if it does not rain. So this is an example of a complex sentence. Now let us look at relative clause using nke. The word nke acts like who, which, or that to describe a noun in more details. Simple example sentences: ahụrụ m nwoke ahụ, which means I saw the man. Then the complex sentence: ahụrụ m nwoke ahụ nke bịara ebe a, which means I saw the man who came here. Wete akwụkwọ ahụ, which means bring that book, which is the simplest sentence. Now in the complex form, wete akwụkwọ ahụ nke dị n'elu oche, which means bring that book that is on the chair. Another example is that nwaanyị ahụ nke na-eri nri bụ nwanne m, which means that woman who is eating food is my nwaanyị ahụ nke na-eri nri bụ nne m, which means nwaanyị ahụ, the woman that is eating food is my mother. Now let us look at conditional sentence using if, then. In Igbo language, it is termed ọ bụrụ na. Then the structure is that ọ bụrụ na plus the condition plus the result. Now let us look at the Igbo structure, Igbo example. Ọ bụrụ na mmiri ezo, anyị ga-aga ahịa, which means in English language, if it rains. Ọ bụrụ na mmiri ezo, anyị ga-aga ahịa, which means if it rain, we will not go to the market. Ọ bụrụ na mmiri ezo, anyị agaghị aga ahịa, meaning that if it is rain, we will not go to market. Another example, ọ bụrụ na ị nwere ego, zụọrọ m nri, which means if you have money, buy food for me. Another example, m ga-abịa ma ọ bụrụ na ị kpọrọ m, which means I will come if you call me. Note, ma ọ bụrụ na is the full form, then ọ bụrụ na is a commonly used in the speech. So that is the example. Ma ọ bụrụ na is the full form, then ọ bụrụ na is the commonly used in the Igbo language speech. Having known that, let us look at time clause and car purposes in Igbo language. Now the time clause using mgbe, which is when. In Igbo language, the example is mgbe ọ bịara, ana m eri nri, which means when he came, I was eating. Mgbe ọ bịara, ana m eri nri, which means when he or she came, I was eating. Another example, kpọọ m mgbe ị ruru ụlọ, which means call me when you reach home. Another example is m ga-eleta gị mgbe m mechara ọrụ, which means I will visit you when I finish work. Then summary of complex sentence starter. Some of the concepts identity Igbo language nke which can mean who, which, or that. Then conditional ọ bụrụ na, which means if. Then time, the concept of time can be mgbe. Mgbe means when or while. Then the purpose means ka, which could be so that or in order to. Then the causes of event, n'ihi na, which could mean because. Then let us look at purpose clause using ka, so that or in order. Agara m ahịa ka m zụta azụ, which means I went to market so that I could buy fish. So this is some of the example of time clause using ka purposes. Having known that, let us look at connection and connectives. The verbal clue. The connecting conjunction, that is joining equal ideas. In Igbo language, na can means and, ma can mean and but. The example of na, Obi na Ada na-aga akwụkwọ, which means Obi and Ada are going to school. Then ma can means and but. M na-eri nri, ma ọ na-aṅụ mmiri, which means I am eating and he is drinking. Then another one is ma ọ bụ, which means or. Ị nwere ike iri ji ma ọ bụ osikapa, which means you may eat rice. You can eat rice or yam. Ị nwere ike iri ji ma ọ bụ osikapa. Now let us look at the contractive connection showing differences. Mana means but. Example, agara m ahịa mana azụghị m ihe ọbụla, which means I went to market but I did not buy anything or I bought nothing. Then another contractive word in Igbo language is kama, which means instead of. Rie ji kama osikapa, which means eat rice instead of rice. Eat yam instead of rice. Another one there is that another constructive connectivity is n'agbanyeghị, which means despite. N'agbanyeghị mmiri zoro, m gara ọrụ, which means despite it rains, I went to work. Having known that, let us look at logical connectives. That is the cause, effect, and the sequence. Explanatory connectives gives reasons and results. Then in Igbo language, some of the example is makana, which means or nihina, meaning because. Example, Obi anọghị ya makana ọ na-arịa ọrịa, which means Obi is not there because he's sick. Obi anọghị ya maka ọ na-arịa ọrịa. Another one is that nihina, which means therefore or so. Agụụ na-agụ m, n'ihi ya esiri m nri, meaning that I am hungry, therefore I cook. Then another logical connectivity is tupu, which means before. Saa aka gị tupu i rie nri, which means wash your hand before you eat food. Then another one, another logical connective is ọzọ, which means also or again. M zụrụ azụ, anụ na akwa ọzọ, which means I bought fish, meat and eggs as well. Then the practical tips: use ọzọ at the end of a list to mean as well or also. Having known that, let us now look at reported speech saying what others said. Akụkọ okwu. The formula is that the Igbo language normally use "sịrị which means state that. Then let us look at this direct speech. Obi sịrị m na-abịa, which means Obi said I am coming. Then the reported speech is that Obi sịrị na ọ na-abịa, which means Obi said that he is coming. Another example is that in the direct speech, ọ sịrị aga m aga ụlọ akwụkwọ, which means he said I will go to school. Then in the reported speech, ọ sịrị na ọ na-aga ụlọ akwụkwọ, which means he said that he will go to school. Now let us look at pronoun shifting. In the direct pronoun, which means I, can be reported as or which means he or she. Example: Ada sịrị na ọ na-aga. Then the second person pronoun, which is anyị in Igbo language, which means we, it can be reported as ha, as they. Has, example: ha sịrị na ha ga-eri, which means they say they will eat. Now the practical tips is that start news with anụrụ m na, which means I heard that. So you can start your news whenever you are reporting a speech. Anụrụ m na ha sịrị. Having known that, let us look at reporting question and command. Reporting question, we normally use ma, which means if or whether, or ebe, which means where. The direct speech is example: ebee ka isi, which means where are you from. Then the reported speech, ọ jụrụ m ebee ka m si, which means he asked me where I am coming from. Another example, ị nwere ego, which means do you have money. Then the reported speech is that ọ jụrụ m ma m nwere ego, which means he asked me if I have money. Then reporting command using ka, which means that or should. Direct command, bịa ebe a, meaning come here. Then the reported speech could be ọ sịrị m ka m bịa ebe a, which means he said I should come here. Then mechie ụzọ, as a commanding, means close the door. Then the reported speech, ọ sịrị m ka m mechie ụzọ, which means he told me to close the door. Having known that, let us look at the advanced negotiation that is beyond mba. Standard negation, we normally add I to the verb. For example, m na-eri nri. If you want to make it a negotiation, anaghị m eri nri, what means I am not eating. M na-eri nri means I am eating. But if you want to form the negation of it, you now say anaghị m eri nri. So we normally use I to form the negation. Let us look at advanced negative form. The form number 1 is ze, meaning no longer or not again. Example: anaghị m eri ya, which means I no longer eat it. Then we have another form like beghị, which means not yet. Oribeghị nri, which means he has not eaten yet. Then we have another form, cha, which means not at all. Amachaghị m ya, which means I don't know him at all. The negative command, ekwela iri nri, which means don't eat food. Then the negative focus here is that ọ bụghị m mere ya, which means it is not I who did it. Now let us look at emphasis, making your point stronger, which involve reduplication, saying a word twice. The most common emphasis method include sengo, ngwa. So ngwa means quickly, but if you want to make it to be replicated, you now say ngwa ngwa, meaning very fast. Then we have nwayo. If you want to make, you can now say nwayo nwayo, meaning very slow, very slowly or carefully. We now have oma, which means oma mma, which means very well. Then we have also, you can replicate it and say also mean very quickly. Then focus maker, highlighting the specific information. Then the makers here is bo. Bo it's used, the function is to identify the subject. Example, Obi bụ onye bịara ebe a, which means it was Obi who came here. Then we have another maker, ka. The function is that it is used to emphasize how or when. Example, ugbu a ka m chọrọ iri nri, which means now is when I want to eat food. The next one is mezie, n'ezie, n'ezie, which means indeed or truly. Example, n'ezie, ọ ga-abịa, which means indeed he will come. Having known that, let us look at some of the idiomatic and figurative expression, idioms of the heart, which is obi, which is the seat of all emotion. Now let us look at some of the idioms. Number one, ime obi ruo ala, which means to make the heart reach the ground. Ime obi ruo ala, meaning to be patient, calm, and humble. Then obi mbawa, that is heartbreaking, but it simply means extremely grieved or heartbroken. Then ikpa obi, to wave the heart, which means to be courageous. Now, idioms of action and experiences. Number one, ịgba n'anwụ means to shoot or stand in the sun, means to struggle without help. Another one is ịta ahụhụ, means to choose suffering, but it simply means to undergo hardship. Now we have ịwanya, means to slice eye, literally meaning to slice eye, but it's naturally mean to be clever or street smart. In conclusion, you have advanced from constructing simple sentences to forming complex ones using relative clause like nke, conditional, ma ọ bụrụ na, time clause mgbe, and purpose clause ka. You mastered conjunction and connectives, mana, n'ihi ya, tupu or ọzọ, as the verbal clue that makes your speech flow logically and naturally. You learn to report what others say using serena, jụrụ ma, or sịrị ka. Expressed advanced negotiation using like z for no longer, be for not yet, and adds emphasis through reduplication, ngwa, and focus makers, buka. You enrich your expression with idiomatic expression like obi mbawa, which means heartbreak, ịwanya, cleverness, and anyukwu, greed, unlocking the poetic depth of speech. Remember, onye ma okwu ọfụma, ọ na-akpa ụzọ, which means he who knows what well clears the path. You are no longer just a speaker, you are now an orator. Jisike. Thank you and have a nice day.